Facebook Marketplace is a great place to pick up a bike for loads cheaper than you can buy one new. I got this one, you might have already seen it, for 50 quid and it's great. Unfortunately, it's also a place where nefarious types are busy trying to con you out of your cash, or if you're selling your bike, or your bike and your cash, in the worst case scenario. In this vid, we're going to go through some top tips for staying safe when buying or selling bikes on Facebook. We're basing this advice on Facebook because it's probably the biggest marketplace right now, but most of the stuff applies wherever you're looking for a bargain. Anyway, let's get started with buying a second-hand bike online. Actually, no, let's start with some basic red flags which will weed out a big chunk of the scammers. Firstly, never pay for anything with an unusual payment method. Gift cards and wire transfers, they're a scammer's favourite as they're completely untraceable. Never click on a payment link sent to you by a seller. Always use a recognised payment app or a website and go there yourself to sort out the payment. Never believe a payment confirmation email from a buyer. Always go and check to see that the money is actually there. Never send an advance payment to secure a sale because chances are you'll not see that money again. Never accept an overpayment. Now, this scam's as old as the hills. The buyer gives you a check for more than the value of the thing you're selling. You pay the check in, refund the difference, the check bounces, and you lose your gear and some cash. Don't fall for that one. Never give a seller your phone number. Never click on any kind of verification link they send you. Never scan any QR code they send you or forward on any verification code that gets pinged to your phone. All of those are normally attempts to phish your details or hack your account. Never agree to move a conversation out of Facebook to somewhere else, and never allow yourself to be pressured into a sale. And breathe. Okay, let's buy ourselves a bike. Well, let's kick off with the golden rule of buying second-hand stuff. Okay, sometimes people don't know what they have, and okay, sometimes you can bag yourself a real bargain. But if something seems too good to be true, then it probably is. Sorry. So don't let your desire for cheap stuff cloud your judgment. I mean, look at this one, for example. Do you really think you're going to get a 10 grand Pinarello with lightweight wheels for 82 quid? Come on. But say you found a bike you like the look of on Facebook Marketplace and you want to know more. What should you do? The first thing you want to do is check the seller's profile. Now, Facebook has been around a long time, so most people's accounts are a few years old at least. If the profile is very recent, and especially if it doesn't have a profile picture, that's an obvious red flag. If the account is public, check for normal person stuff going on. This chap selling this e-bike, for example, joined in 2024, has no posts, no friends, no profile pic. Probably best to steer clear. Check what else the seller has on Marketplace. Often scammers will have a range of stuff on sale, all of which looks very cheap and all of which is about the same price. Normally somewhere in the £50 to £100 range, which has obviously been hit on as a sort of sweet spot for people taking a punt in the hope of snagging a bargain. You can see our friend with the Pinarello also has a mobility scooter and a shed and a kitchen island up for grabs. Except of course he doesn't have any of those things. If any of this is the case with your seller, then just walk away and report them too for the benefit of everyone. Next, check the listing. Firstly, do a reverse image search on the images used in the listing to see if they show up anywhere else. Also, look for clues in the images themselves. Our Pinarello, for example, has a Caldecott Cycles logo, and a quick Google search of that shop brings up their website shop with expensive bikes at normal expensive bike prices. How much detail is there about the bike? Here is a real Pinarello listing with some genuine looking pics and a bit of backstory about the bike and a realistic price. Not everyone will add much by way of a description, but most people selling a posh road bike will, and even someone selling an old Beta will generally make a bit of an effort if they're genuine. Assuming you're happy that the bike's a real sale and you want to go further, then the next step should always be to meet up in person. When you're buying a bike, it's so important to meet up in person, see the bike, kick the tyres, give it a ride around the block. You need to meet the buyer and form an opinion about them. You get to see the bike with your own eyes. You can check for things like crash damage or worn parts that might not be obvious in the seller's pics. You get to try it out for size, and you also get to find out if the position is what you want. We've done a vid about all the things to check when you go to see a second-hand bike, and that's popping up now. So check that out if you're not sure what you should be looking for. Meeting up in person also protects you from a lot of underhand activities. Scammers pretending to sell bikes they don't have, like the Pinarello, will obviously not want to meet you in person. If you're there with the seller and the bike, you can have a face-to-face about the price and the method of payment, which will protect you from many of the ways that bad actors try to get your cash without actually handing anything over. Test riding is always a bit of a dance, to be frank. On the one hand, if you're selling a bike, you don't want some rando just riding off with it, never to reappear. And if you're buying a bike, then you don't want to hand over a pile of cash to some rando, only to find out the bike's a wreck and they've scarpered when you get back. So if you're buying, there are things you can do to put a buyer's mind at ease. So if you're going to drive to the meet, then you can meet somewhere where the seller can see you arrive in your car. That way, they know you're probably going to be coming back for it. Bringing a friend is always a good idea. They can stay with the buyer, and if they need to, they can hold your cash while you're riding around. It's best to set the ground rules for viewing beforehand, especially if you're buying an expensive bike. For instance, you can let the seller know that the first viewing is just that, a viewing. You won't have money with you, you won't agree to buy. They may pressure you to make a sale or a decision, but if they do, you can walk away. There are plenty of bikes out there. We wouldn't recommend handing over any cash before a test ride, or anything like your car key that could potentially be worth more than the bike is to a scammer. Most sellers would be happy with something that's personally identifiable and a pain to replace for you, but not of any real value for them. A driver's license is good. Most people are reasonable and honest and just trying to buy or sell stuff. But if you have any doubts, just leave. You'll kick yourself if you were right and you don't. Obviously, if you're meeting up with someone to look at a bike, you can just hand over a bunch of cash. And that's what I did with this beauty. Did I mention it was only 50 quid? But you don't have to. And there are some reasons you might not want to. If it's an expensive bike, carrying a large amount of money can be risky. And if the person you're meeting turns out to be not quite what you thought, well, you know, let's not go there. Most people these days bank online, and most people have a banking app on their phone. And for the most part, transfers between banking apps are more or less instantaneous. So one option is just to transfer the cash electronically and wait for it to arrive, rather than hand it over physically. Another option is to use PayPal. Now, this can be a better option if you don't fully trust yourself to spot problems with a second-hand bike, because if you use the goods and services payment method, then there's a dispute resolution system. That's not free, but if you're upfront that that's what you want to do, then you can thrash out who's going to pay the fee. Maybe you'll split it, or even if you end up paying it, it's not a big extra bill on top of the bike cost for some extra peace of mind. What if you really want a bike but it's not practical to meet up? You might find exactly the bike you're looking for at a great price at the other end of the country. What then? Obviously, buying remotely introduces you to more risk. You can't look at the bike in person and you have to get it delivered to you. It might get damaged in transit, or it might not show up at all. In the UK, there are distance selling laws that protect you in some circumstances, but they mostly don't apply if you're buying second-hand stuff from a private individual. And the test ride dance is replaced by the postage and payment dance. If you're selling, you're going to want to see the cash before you send the bike, and if you're buying, you're going to want to see the bike before forking out the cash. It's for you and the seller to thrash out the details here, but these are our top tips. Firstly, always use a payment method that offers you some protection. Again, PayPal Goods and Services is an obvious choice. Many buyers, even honest ones, will ask you to do a friends and family payment because there are no fees, but that offers you no protection at all if the sale goes wrong. You're basically just handing over the cash. If your seller will allow it, we definitely recommend organising the postage yourself. That way, you're in charge of the whole process and you can be sure it's legit. Now, whichever way you're doing it, make sure that both you and the seller have all the tracking information. Make sure there's enough insurance to cover the cost of the bike, and factor that into the price you're paying, as it can increase the postage costs quite a bit for a more expensive bike. Ask the seller to provide you with photos of the bike being packed, and also when it's fully packed. If the box is obviously damaged when it arrives, then these will be invaluable if you have to make a claim. If you're selling a bike rather than buying, then really most of what we've said already still applies, but obviously the boot's on the other foot. Try and make your listing detailed and honest, and use your own photos and plenty of them. Be as helpful and as open as you can with prospective buyers. Try and find a local buyer who's willing to meet up to see the bike, and make sure that you protect yourself if you're offering a test ride. And then when you're sorting out payment, if you're posting a bike, make sure you find a sturdy box for it and pack it as well as you possibly can. Your local bike shop will probably give you a box or sell you one for a few quid. Take photos, share them with the buyer. Use a payment method with a dispute mechanism, and attract an insured courier service that you trust. If the buyer's organising the courier, check the tracking details and the address with the courier when they arrive. If you can't confirm them against what you have from the buyer, then don't let the bike leave. Better safe than sorry. If you're careful, then buying secondhand is a great way to get lots of bike for your money. Have you got any more tips? Stick them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed it. Hit the bell to get notified when we post new content. That's all for now. We'll see you soon.